Welcome to the Aging Well podcast, where we explore the science, stories, and strategies that help us live longer, healthier, and more purposeful lives. I am your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong, an exercise physiologist with a passion for making science simple and life better as we age. My guest is Dr. Lillestol, a retired nurse practitioner and senior education advisor for Life is Chill, an organization dedicated to helping older adults explore cannabis as a tool for aging with intention and vitality. Drawing on decades of clinical experience and deep scientific understanding, Dr. Lillestol has become a trusted voice in demystifying cannabis and translating complex research into practical insights for everyday life. In this conversation, we'll explore how plant-based wellness, especially cannabis, can support chronic pain relief, better sleep, anxiety reduction, and even cognitive health. Whether you're curious, skeptical, or seeking alternatives, Dr. Lillestol brings clarity and compassion to a topic often clouded by stigma and misinformation among those seeking to age well.
The Aging Well podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical or mental health advice. Dr. Armstrong is a PhD exercise physiologist, and no doctor-patient relationship is suggested. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content of this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.
Well, Dr. Lillestol, welcome to the Aging Well podcast. Now, you have had a long career in traditional healthcare. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your current role at Life is Chill and into the world of cannabis education.
Well, thank you. I am traditionally trained as a family nurse practitioner, and so I did the normal traditional, but I was very sick. And I had to go outside of my personal American training to figure out how to get well. I was filled with parasites. I had done some overseas travel. And so I morphed my practice into more of a naturopathic after I healed myself. And so I didn't always fit into that model. And I worked as a functional medicine clinician. So I would find your root problem, correct it. And if I could, with nutraceuticals, I would systematically remove your pharmaceuticals. And so I was labeled by some of my colleagues at the university, because I was a professor, as a voodoo doctor. And I was very open to all the herbal, and I integrated that into my practice, plant medicine. So it was a natural transition when I closed my practice. One of my patients opened a dispensary and said, "Would you work for us?" And I said, "I don't know much about cannabis, but yeah, it's a plant. I'm interested." So that's how it started.
So what kind of responses do you get from older adults when first introduced to the idea of cannabis as a wellness tool? Because I know a lot of, at least my generation, I think you're younger than me. My generation is 60, I'm 62, into the 70-year-olds. That was kind of that generation where pot was becoming a little bit more acceptable, but more as a escape, as a pleasure kind of tool, not as what we would have back then called a wellness tool.
Right.
So what kind of response are you getting from older adults today?
Well, the older adult is trying to work through the stigma, and they're embraced in a way of being that they think that what they're experiencing is natural. Aging is a degradation of the body. And what they believe is their doctor knows everything. And so when I come on and say, consider something natural in cannabis, they're like, "Oh, that's kind of bad." And I go, "Well, it's a plant. It's divinely given for our wellness and our health. And so wouldn't it be kind of lovely if you could maybe change what's going on in your body symptom-wise or a lack of function with a plant that might support you better and consider it as part of your wellness plan?" And then they go, "What?" They kind of go, "Wait a second." I go, "I'm a little different as a doctor, And I'm here to help you maybe look outside of what you're used to seeing. And I'm kind of abrupt. I'm like, I want you to be your own doctor. I don't have the luxury of living in your body. You do. No one knows you as well as you. And so let me give you some tools, some wellness tools called Cannabis. And let's have a discussion and open it up and say, what do you know? What don't you know? What concerns? And let's go from there. And then they're like, oh, okay, let's do that. It's very
So what are some of the biggest myths or Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is. But what are some of the myths and misunderstandings that you come across in the older adults?
Well, they believe that it's still the devil's weed. Okay. They believe that it's bad. They're conditioned into never questioning authority. So what they were given, they truly believed. And they don't do research. So I'm like, can we come together and maybe make something happen here? Because when I tell them the history, they're like alarmed. And they see it as something that is illegal, although it's not anymore. They see it as something that makes you look bad, so they would be judged. They see it as something that bad people do, and they're not a bad person. And they see it as kind of an outlier, like it's kind of fringe. It's not okay. Like it's very unique. And what's the bigger piece that's going on right now as I speak with you is the stigma is so real. They don't want to be judged. If they're using a gummy for sleep and it's working and a caregiver judges them, they'll stop it, even if it's working. So now I'm talking to caregivers. Like, you have no idea how much influence you have. It's absolutely incredible.
So how do you approach them in a way that is both grounded in science and just practicality?
Well, that's really good. I speak from my own experience because I've done a 180. So I used to medically detox addicts. I did methadone tapers with heroin addicts. I saw marijuana as a gateway drug. I worked with alcoholics, cocaine, crystal meth. But I said, you have a PhD. Pull up your big girl panties and do the research. And when I looked, I was furious. I'm like, they lied to us. I start every conversation with the history, going back thousands of years and then talking about how it came into America, how it was part of the pharmacopoeia for doctors, and how these two people took it away from us because of economic interest. If I paint the true history of where we came from and where we are today, there's an opening. There's like, oh, I had no idea. And so then I go into my personal experience. I have a little bit of a cold. And I share about how it's benefited my life and my family's lives. And I have a 93-year-old mother. And by the way, I'm 67. So I'm like, Mom wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the cannabis. And so they're like, oh, your 93-year-old mother takes cannabis? I'm like, yeah. And you want to know something? I have 3 brothers. 2 are against it. Mother's quality of life is everything. We just zip the lip. And she's putting it into her life. And it's been amazing. I can give you story after story. But if I come from that perspective, from my personal journey with it, and how I was against it, and how I saw it as a gateway drug, but only 9% of adults have an addictive disorder. They can ruin anything that's good. I come from 2 family histories of addiction. So I said, I'm going to serve that addicted person because that could be me. I'm not going to judge them. And so it was a win-win. It's a tough go as a doctor to do that because you see icky behavior. But, oh my gosh, if I just lead with my personal story and how far I've come, I'm like, if I can change, oh my gosh, you can change. We're in this together.
So how addictive is cannabis? I think we've been lied to at that in terms of the addictability of it. Is that a word?
Well,
addictability?
Yeah,
addictiveness.
I know. There are some people that want to use it as a crutch and not show up in life, okay? Where they're using it too much and they can't be functional. So they're giving it a bad name. And part of what's going on, and I'm saying this to the elders, the modern elder, is we started getting legalization of cannabis around the medical reason. But now that it's been in place for many years across many states, we're losing the medical dialogue, and it's become heavy recreational. We've lost our ground. We've lost our roots. We've lost the reason why we legalized it. And I'm like, this can be part of your wellness plan. This can be something that you augment what you're already doing with your medical doctor. It doesn't replace your medical doctor ever. It's something that comes alongside it and supports it. But you've got to make the decision to put your foot in the water and say, hey, I'm going to check this out. I'm going to experiment on me. I'm going to be my own doctor right now and put it in the door and just wait and see.
So let's talk a little bit about chronic pain. How can cannabis be part of a pain management strategy, and what are some of the key considerations that one should keep in mind?
Well, unfortunately, the medical arena is quick to give us pain medications that are addictive. Those opioids will make us very constipated, can give us a brain fog, and really can interrupt the functioning, the mobility of an elder. So it's very risky. And their bodies have a harder time detoxifying off of it. And it's, in my opinion, a misused medication too frequently. What we can do is supplement with cannabis, because we know that cannabis helps with chronic pain. It's disrupting the pain signals in the brain is what it's doing. And there's many ways that we can go about treating the body to help with pain, whether it's CBD or if it's a combination of THC, CBD. We can use non-intoxicating substances from the cannabis plant, CBG. There's so many ways that we can go about this. And my company, I work for Life is Chill. We have an amazing new product called Chill Drops. It's a liposomal delivery of THC. So the THC molecule is wrapped in a molecule that you and I make called phosphatidylcholine. So the body sees it and goes, hey, welcome, come on in, let's play. It's rapid acting, it's sustained release, and it's precision dosing. And I have an example from my 93-year-old mother. For some reason, she developed a kidney stone. She's never had it. It was 10 weeks ago. And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to go to the ER. They hate cannabis. They're asking about it. They're very judgmental. We're lying. We freeze. And then the care isn't always what it should be. I said, can we just take the Chill Drops, which is a liquid beverage enhancer that has no flavor, like I'm drinking coconut water. I put it in my mother's coconut water. 1 pump is 2 milligrams. We hunkered down in the house and Mom passed her kidney stone. It took her pain away. That's like giving birth to a child. It's horrific. And I said, how you doing, Mom? I'm happy. I'm like, good, but how's the pain on the scale of 0 to 10? It was an 8. What is it now? It's 5. I'm like, are you okay at a 5? Yeah, I'm good at a 5. I'm like, okay. So that was straight THC. My mother does not want to be high, but it went right to the pain. And it's brand new, and I was flabbergasted. I'm like, that's amazing. She's cognizant. She can walk. She's got less pain. I mean, it's a win-win here.
If you're enjoying the Aging Well podcast, be sure to like, subscribe, or follow on your favorite platform so you will never miss an episode. And if you find our conversations helpful, please share the podcast with a friend, because aging is something we're all doing, and we're better at doing it together. And support our guests in this podcast financially by visiting the affiliate links in the episode description below, and use the links or codes provided for discounts on products we have vetted and feel comfortable recommending to our valued viewers and listeners. Thank you, and now back to the podcast. So what are the differences in the roles between the THC and the CBCs? I always struggle with that one.
So it's an alphabet soup. So it really is. So now I'm going into elder care and talking about the non-intoxicating cannabinoids. So CBG, cannabigerol, it's really good for pain. It's extremely good for peripheral neuropathy, for the fact that you can't feel the bottom of your feet, or you've got this shooting pain that's just burning all the way down your legs. It's amazing how it can go in. And why? Because it's neuroprotective. It's waking up those nerve cells. It's giving them energy, and it's It's just taking down the angst so that they don't have to be shooting pain signals all the time. So it's going in there and correcting a problem with the nerve cell that's misfiring. And so it has neuroprotective properties. So does CBC. It has neuroprotective properties. And it's going beyond the blood-brain barrier quicker than, THC. So it's just like, whoa. So it's affecting the pain signals in the brain that are going down to, like, in the peripheral neuropathy person with bad, numbness in their feet, and they can't feel their legs as well, and it's burning. It's helping, and it's not constipating. It's not making them foggy. It's not making them feel icky or like, I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit here like a lump on a log.
So what role does the THC play?
What about the THC?
What role does that play? Because I hear, and I forget where I heard it recently, that if we look at like the current marijuana plants that are being sold at dispensaries and things like that, have about 4 times the amount of THC that would have been in the marijuana that my friends were smoking in high school.
So it's called ethnobotany. So it's incredible genetics that are going on, and I have no expertise there. All I can tell you is the plant is totally different than when you and I were 15. And even if our modern elder did smoke or consume, it's a different animal now. And it's scary. And they've been conditioned to do exactly as their doctor said, and they don't want to deviate. So the tendency that I'm seeing out there with the modern elder is they don't want to be intoxicated and they don't trust THC. However, low dosages like the chill drops that we have are going to be highly effective because it's going to go to the place of insult, chaos, and it's going to maximize that cannabis product because your endocannabinoid system will kick in and go, well, we were waiting for you. Where were you? Now we can get to work and change the equation and fix what's not working. So the chill drops is like a game changer for us. It's only 2 milligrams and it goes right to the chaos. And so that elder can be functioning. And like, it's just like, they can let out like the pressure of just being in pain and just agony and just facing another day, hour by hour. It's not easy.
And we know that many older adults also struggle with sleep. I mean, I have same situation. I've been struggling about 2 months now with a CPAP machine that seems to be making my sleep worse. Okay. And what does the research say about cannabis and sleep quality?
So cannabis, the THC molecule, is very good at helping the brain fall asleep, but we're all uniquely different. Okay. Some people, they can't take THC and CBD works just great. For me, I'm very hyper and my brain goes online the minute I put my head on a pillow. So one of the other things that I did when I went into cannabis, I came off of Ambien. So let's talk about Ambien, okay? Because I dosed it and it's out there. So I was forgetting meetings I was in as a doctor when my business partner said, Dr. Dana, I go Dr. Dana because I'm informal. You need to get off that Ambien. You don't remember anything about that meeting? I go, I don't remember anything. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get off Ambien. Well, my answer was cannabis, but I struggled for years. And then when I found cannabis, the THC put my head to sleep. But then guess what? I have anxiety. So I could wake up in the middle of the night and need to use the restroom. And then all of a sudden start worrying like, oh, I'm lecturing tomorrow and I forgot to put the goodie bags together for those modern elders. And then I don't go back to sleep. So then I add CBN, which is when the THC flower gets exposed to light and air, it turns into CBN, right? CBN is highly sedative, like a 10 milligram Valium. So I take an edible every night that has THC and CBN so that if I start worrying when I get up, the CBN puts me right back down to sleep. And the cool thing about CBN, it's stopping the progression of Lewy bodies. So it's stopping the worsening of Alzheimer's. It's preserving memory. And so it's a win-win. I mean, it's mildly psychoactive, right? But it's a win-win. And I just tell the elders, be careful when you get up. If you want to go on it, sit on the edge of your bed before you go and use the bathroom. Stand on your feet and see if you're moving. Hold your walker or your cane and then go to the bathroom very intentionally and mindfully. And the CBN is working behind the scenes, anti-inflammatory. It's boosting the immune system. I mean, so consider, Jeff, maybe adding THC and CBN. That might really work for you. And I always say there's 3 variables I want you to pay attention, because now you're your own doctor. How fast did you fall asleep? If you had to get up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, were you able to fall back asleep? And how rested are you in the morning? Those are the points that you need to measure that will determine if you're getting enough or not enough. And then you can adjust very slowly in your own body, because it's not one size fits all. It's not. You're uniquely different from me, and what works for your sleep could be totally different than mine. And that's okay. But we have to experiment.
What a unique approach to medicine, that we are all an N of one instead of this works for everybody. Just do this.
But they need to get out of inertia. They need to get out of the stigma, and they need to show initiative. And that's the biggest piece right now. The stigma is so everywhere. It's really hard. And I'm a modern elder cheerleader. I'm trying to wake them up, but it takes a while.
And so what role does cannabis play in supporting emotional well-being, especially when it comes to, you mentioned anxiety. How does it play a role in dealing with anxiety and especially stress later in life?
So CBG is very good with anxiety. I start it every day. I didn't even take it yet, but I start it every day. CBD is very good for anxiety, and neither of them will make you intoxicated or high. And they deal with stress, they deal with anxiety, and even CBC is a mood enhancer. So they could do any one of those non-intoxicating substances that are excreted from the cannabis plant to support their wellness plan. Because this is what's really sad, Jeff. I'll go in and lecture, and then they'll say, "Can you come back?" And I'll come back, and the activity director will say, "Oh my gosh, you make them so happy. We just love you," because they're so grumpy, because they're hurting, and they're anxious, and they're disempowered. And I'm trying to empower them. And it's really hard because they're just entrenched in a way of being. And I'm like, look you can do this. You can change everything about your aging, but start with one thing and go really low and really slow. And I'm here to coach you, to celebrate you, and to support you. And so let's create a cadre of people in your community where you can talk about this journey. Like, how's it working with your Parkinson's? How's it working with your rheumatoid arthritis? Or how's it working with your anxiety? And we rub off on one another.
Yeah, that's one of the discussions we're not really having. I mean, I live in Oregon. We were probably one of the earlier states to adopt legalization of cannabis. And, we're approaching more cannabis dispensaries than there are McDonald's in the state of Oregon. I mean, I'm just throwing that out. That may not be statistically true, but it seems that way. I mean, it's like you can't turn around. There's, Starbucks, McDonald's, and cannabis dispensaries. Those are probably the things you're going to see the most in the state of Oregon. And yet you don't hear the medical discussion about it. Again, it's, well, I have a medical prescription, which is kind of like a nudge, say no more. I do it recreationally, but I do it under the guise of medical. And I think there needs to be more of that discussion and moving away from this being something that we're doing recreationally to feel good, from the sense of just kind of escaping our problems, and talking more about how is this being approached in order to best benefit our overall health and well-being. And you've been mentioning all the, you said the alphabet soup. I've always pretty much just understood marijuana is THC. And, and that's why I keep struggling with the CBCs. But now there's like different types of CBCs that each different plant has. And I think we're only beginning to scratch the surface of understanding and educating people as to what each of those different components, what roles they can play in your health and well-being. And it's not a matter of smoking the plant, because I struggle with the concept of smoking marijuana. And I have a friend who has eye conditions in Colorado, and she smokes medicinal marijuana because she says it gives her greater control over the dosage. But for me, as an exercise physiologist and somebody that preaches don't smoke, I have a lot of issues with, okay, you're inhaling and holding that in your lungs. That cannot be good for your lungs, even though there's all these good components in it. And so what you're talking about is really more of a medicinal delivery system to getting the healthy components of the plant into the body. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, we're dealing with the silent crisis that's hiding in plain sight. Mm-hmm. Our elders, they're aging, and it's not pretty, and they don't even know how to start. Yeah. And I'm agreeing with you. I don't want smoking. I don't like smoking. And I talk about it. I don't know what these 20-year-old lungs are going to look like when they're 67 if they continue. There's a lot of residue in a bong that you can see, and you're like, ooh, some of that's got to get into my lungs, you know? So I'm not talking smoking with the modern elder. I'm talking tinctures. I'm talking edibles. I'm talking my liquid drops. I'm talking a different walk than what the recreational is doing. And when I'm doing a brand pop-up in a dispensary, 75% of people walk right by me. And I understand that. You know, I have a capsule with Life is Chill, which looks like vitamin E. It's whole spectrum oil. And elders are used to taking capsules, and they travel well. You know, I mean, I'm going to Bali, Indonesia at the end of the month, and it's death there if you come in with cannabis. Well, guess who comes in with cannabis? It's vitamin E. It looks like vitamin E. I take my night pill, I pour it into a vitamin E jar, and I go through dogs, customs, and immigration. Just don't go to Russia, because they'd probably open the capsule and analyze it, and I'd be in prison for life. But I'm good with Bali. I went there last year. I'm going back again this year. So it travels well.
Yeah, that was going to be a question of mine. That was going to be a question of mine is how are you able to carry this across borders with so many different laws in regard, even within the United States in regards to, you know, marijuana and usage and things like that, how it's kind of labeled, how does it get past the sniffing dogs at the airport? Yeah.
It's against the law to go across state lines, but it's my wellness program, and my sleep is the most important part of my anti-aging program. And so it's a no-brainer for me. I've got to sleep because I'm going there to work with a shaman with an intensive healer, experience. So I've got to sleep because I'm going to be doing a lot of work.
Okay, and so there's also been a lot of increasing curiosity about cannabis and cognitive health. Can you speak to the potential risks and benefits for the aging brain?
So I find that hysterical what you just said. So the aging brain has a certain level of inflammation. That's why we have lapses in memory, or it's hard to retrieve that word or remember that person. And, dementia is just another form of inflammation. So I hate to say this, but like I just said, CBG goes through the blood-brain barrier so easy. And all of these substances from cannabis will decrease the inflammation in an aging brain, will help connectivity between hemispheres. I mean, I did a whole course for 6 weeks on rewiring the brain using just CBD for anxiety. And I did it to a 55 plus community. So the scoop is the American Medical Association doesn't really understand the benefit of brain health when we look at cannabis. And I understand why they don't. But the scoop is it's really working. And in my family, my grandmother, my mother's mother, got dementia at 96. My mom's 93. I said to my mom, here's a CBN tincture. I need you to start taking it every day, Mom, because I can't take care of you if you get dementia. And so my mother's doing that. Every day she's putting some CBN tincture underneath her tongue because we're trying to maintain her memory and stabilize her mood. But, it's great.
And I would do probably a lot of injustice to the different drug categories that are prescribed to aging adults and how they are so negatively affecting brain development. And we tend to not think of we talked about sleep. So many of the sleep medications that are prescribed for individuals have been tied to the increased risk of all forms of dementia.
correct.
And yet
20%.
we don't hear that from the pharmaceutical companies.
I'm talking about that all the time. So part of the medical establishment is this level of arrogance. They don't have 20 to 40 years research on that medication. And so, they act like they're beyond scrutiny, but that's not acceptable. We need to scrutinize. And the fact is, people who are on sleep meds have a 40% chance of dementia. And I'm speaking that out there. And the elders are like going, whoa, okay, how do I change this? If they're open, willing, listening.
And so how can someone who's new to cannabis figure out really what form, you've talked about tinctures, edibles. I don't think you mentioned topicals. I don't know if you have any topical applications. Mm-hmm. How do they figure out what form and what dosage might be the best for them?
So it's always slow and low. And I'm always steering them away from smoking because a lot of them did smoke. And what I'm recommending is what's easiest for them to work with. So tinctures aren't hard. Edibles aren't hard. Topicals aren't hard. And a lot of them have skin issues and joint issues. So the topicals are very good. But I always say we need to have a program that goes inside the body to change the inflammation and the acceleration of aging, which is oxidation. So we want antioxidants, and that's cannabis. So that's how I'm approaching that. And it's been pretty positive if they're willing to test the water. I will meet individually with them and discuss their unique condition, and then I will make recommendations. And now what we're doing is we're bringing the modern elder in busloads to dispensaries, and we're celebrating them. After I've lectured, we bring them in, and we've got a bus tour tomorrow. And we're filming it because we love our modern elders and no one's catering to them. We're challenging everyone out there to do the same thing in their community because they don't know how to age gracefully. And so if we can come alongside them and support them, and I can help them with their polypharmacy, Jeff, because I contributed to it. I want to make sure that what they're doing with their doctor isn't going to be disrupted with the cannabis. So I can steer them around their blood thinner, around their high cholesterol med, around their heartburn med, around their antipsychotic, so that they're still working because they're paying good money with a copay and they really need it. But we're just going to come in the door a little bit later to support some of the side effects that are happening and the lack of quality in different areas of their lives.
And so are there any important safety concerns or contraindications, particularly when they're on these multiple medications that one should be aware of?
Well, first off, I always tell them if they take too much, how they can change that. So, but the biggest thing is the polypharmacy. So if they're on any one of those meds that I just mentioned, we have to take the cannabis 2 hours away. So if they take their pravastatin for high cholesterol, first thing in the morning, they got to wait 2 hours before they take their edible for their mood enhancement or for their chronic pain, okay? Because I don't want to disrupt that. The other thing is sometimes if they take too much because someone was insensitive or didn't understand their physiology and offered something and they took it, you can go to your kitchen and get peppercorns and start chewing them, and it will take the high down if that was to occur. But the vast majority of elders are not using THC unless they're true bona fide hippies. They used it forever, and now they're 80 whatever, and they're like, I'm still using it because it's part of my wellness plan. But that's not real typical. And when I meet that person, I just love on them because I want them to just spread the love throughout their entire community.
Now, everybody doesn't have access to you.
I know.
And many of their doctors are not as likely to have understanding, training, or even support of cannabis use. So who else can they talk to? Would their traditional pharmacist be more capable of being able to help them with some of these questions that they might have in regards to dosage and timing and things like that?
That's a very good question. The typical pharmacist across the United States probably doesn't know much unless he or she has been using it themselves or family members, or there's a passion to understand it. Now, the exception would be the state of Georgia, because Georgia has allowed pharmacies to dispense cannabis. So I was one of many people that created a whole curriculum for the Georgia pharmacists and techs. So those individuals will be appraised and informed, and Georgia's sitting pretty. But I can't speak for any other state. The pharmacists and the doctors don't know.
That just makes incredible sense, which is probably why it's not done. That the pharmacists would be the ones educated in cannabis and their interactions with other drugs, because I guarantee that the typical cannabis dispensary operator here, at least in the state of Oregon, is not trained in anything other than cannabis, if even that, enough to be able to say, okay, well, you need to consider that if you're on these medications, these gummies or these tinctures need to be taken in a certain way to not interfere with those.
Yeah, there's so many problems with so many people. If they try, the pharmacist doesn't know, the doctor doesn't know, the nurse practitioner probably doesn't know, and they really can't talk about it unless you bring it up. So I'm telling my modern elders, transparency is critical, because the education that our doctors get is funded by Medicare. That's federal dollars. So they see cannabis as Schedule I heroin. So they can't talk about it. Their hands are tied. And if you bring it up, they can talk about it. And the more we tell them the benefit, more and more doctors are going, you know what? I'm hearing some real positive things about that. You just keep doing that. And that's wonderful. And it takes the whole community to be talking and sharing and rubbing off on one another. It's like a ripple effect, but it's so slow, Jeff. And there's so many barriers. And that's why I'm calling all states to become champions for the modern elder in cannabis education. And what we're doing is now we're going to put a huge conference on here in Phoenix, celebrating the modern elder in cannabis education. We're just going to spoil them rotten. And so we're so excited. And we don't even know who's going to show up, but we're going to pull it off. And I'm teaching all over in these dispensaries, training the bud tenders about the health benefits and how they fit for sleep, for glaucoma, that's CBG, for anxiety, for sleep, for pain. And so I can't speak to Oregon, but I can speak in this state. It's my territory. I'm training all those bud tenders. And I give them my cell phone and I say, you call me with any question, with any elder, and I'm there for you because you're not alone. I'm here to support you. It's going to take more people than me because we have a huge aging population in Arizona.
And it's only growing.
And it's nothing but growing unless we heat them out too bad.
Yeah. You're talking about the modern elder. Here on the Aging Well podcast, we tend to talk about how aging well begins at conception, essentially. We talk about it at birth, but really at conception or even before. How do you approach cannabis use across the lifespan? Is there anything that you can kind of allude to there that,
right,
as we look at the developing brain on into adulthood, how does cannabis affect that development of the brain, the protection of the brain, and the health and well-being of the individual?
So the youngest tyke in the state of Arizona that got a medical marijuana card was just barely born. And that little kid had 40 seizures a day. He's on super high dose CBD and he has one a month now because he was born with brain inflammation. Okay. So the young brain could really use CBD. I'm using it a ton with autistic children, with ADHD children. I have teachers coming in when I used to work in a dispensary saying, oh my gosh, this child is focused and like can finish something for a change and I can direct this child. So from about birth to 20, CBD is amazing. Amazing for the hyperactive kid, the child who, even with dyslexia, that's brain inflammation. But we can't introduce THC until after the brain is fully developed. And it's longer for boys than for girls. And when I was in the psychiatric facility, medically detoxing people, I was managing children as well. And I saw 15-year-olds who were constantly smoking and they changed their entire brain physiology. You can predispose yourself to like getting schizoaffective disorder in your brain. You don't muck with a developing brain and THC. So we have to wait. And then as we age, The 20s are extremely anxious. That's a beautiful time to then introduce CBG or THC. I mean, it's terrible. Everyone's scattering and you're trying to figure out, and there's so much pressure to do everything right now, and they don't have to. So, I mean, cannabis could be a godsend for the 20-year-old. That's a tough decade. And the other tough decade, aging, where everybody's scattering. They're all dying. You're losing friends. You're losing family members. Your significant other isn't here anymore. And you don't have that sense of community. And you're like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. And like, what am I to do? And the world is so different. So cannabis as a plant has a purpose and a place from birth all the way to death. And as you and I change, whether we have an accident, God forbid, or a newly diagnosis, we can put it in the door. And, you know, I'm so excited about cannabis. I mean, I even put it up the bum. You know, my PhD is in nursing, but I studied gastroenterology and immunology because of how bad my gut was, filled with parasites. And when your tummy's bad, your brain's bad. So I'm putting cannabis in cancer patients in the rectum. And I even published an article about the anatomy there. So it's a tool. It's an amazing wellness tool to augment physiology that's not working, to help a brain that's stressed and anxious and can't sleep, to just functioning in a social setting, to like aging well, to having the energy to even show up in a gym and start lifting and stretching. So it goes across every decade of life.
So for someone who's open but hesitant, what first steps would you recommend for them to take?
Well, I get personal. So I'm like, what's bothering you? What would you like to change? What isn't working? Okay, I just want one thing. What's the worst thing? Okay, so what is it? Okay, it's my rheumatoid arthritis in my hands. Okay, I totally get that. So let's talk about different topicals that you could rub on your hands to decrease that pain. But then let's talk about something to put in the body to change the inflammation and the oxidation that's occurring, so that we're hitting it with two ways. And they'll go, oh, I kind of like that. But let's start with the cream first. And I say, give me 90 days on the cream. And then I want you to look into this over here that we're going to put inside to change that equation. How does that sound? And they're like, I think I could do that. I go, okay, great. Let's do it. Just simple, personal, intentional.
So what does aging well mean to you today, and how has that evolved over the course of your career?
Ooh. Aging well is not defined by retirement or irrelevance. It's curiosity, it's experience, it's a willingness to grow, and it's reimagining the second part of your life. It's exciting. I can't tell you how much fun I'm having. I love this decade. And it's because I'm embracing cannabis and everything that it brings. And people are like, you're running circles around us. I go, well, I'm kind of a hyper thing, and I have good energy, but it's fueled by cannabis, plant medicine.
So it's interesting because I have always, and I guess I'm just living out of my experience in the 70s. And I had a classmate in college that literally like smoked marijuana like a cigarette. And he was one of the most intelligent, brightest, best performing guys in my geology major. Right. But, you know, we tend to think of marijuana as really being chill and making, you know, we envision those kind of Cheech and Chong, right, 70s music, movie stoners.
Right.
But here you are talking about the energy that it can give you, mm-hmm, and, you know, giving you less stress, whereas a lot of people tend to think of the paranoia that might come with smoking the plant and the THC. So I'm hearing a very different case for cannabis than many people might be kind of thinking of.
Well, it is different. We're going low and slow. We're not there to get high. We're there to take care of the ick that we don't want in our life, or at least reduce that ick so that we can show up more boldly and enjoy what we have.
So in regards to reducing that ick, and in addition to your cannabis use, what else are you doing personally to age well?
Oh, I go to a gym. I lift weights. I mean, people can't believe I'm 67. You know, I've got my weight that I had in junior high. I I'm doing what I love. You know, cannabis is helping my family, helping me, helping anyone I can touch. And I mean, I guess that you could call me a cannabis crusader, but it's for the modern elder and for medical. But I don't feel called to the medical establishment. I'm called to the lay public to empower them and to take, you know, this is the hard thing. Our elders have given their power away, Jeff. And I'm trying to help them take that power back, but they have to be willing. And see, I'm willing. So I'm a living example of saying, you can do this. It's never too late. Why don't you try it? If you don't like it, then fine, you're done. But try it.
So what are some of the more promising trends or new developments in plant-based wellness that you're excited about?
Well, I'm really into novel technology, okay? So this delivery system that we have at Life is Chill with the liposomal and nanotechnology, meaning a small molecule, easy for the body to take in, I'm excited about that technology, which is going to just go bigger, which is beautiful. Because we need precision dosing at low dosages, and you can microdose it, and you could slowly come off of some medications that are no longer serving you, but your body is kind of still holding on to. So I love that ability. I'm also making edibles now in my own personal life and seeing amazing benefit. So at this workshop we're going to have hands-on rooms where they could learn how to make an edible if they wanted, so that they can control costs and still take care of their pain or their sleep or their anxiety or their general inflammation. So I'm excited about putting cannabis in a form that you and I can use, whether I teach you how to take flower and make a tincture that you're putting in your water or your juice every day to deal with those issues. There's so many ways that this can be done. And so I'm excited about that. Getting cannabis in the hands of individuals, for me, modern elders, so that they can take the ick away and reimagine what could be instead of what is, and get excited about life.
So speaking of getting it into the hands of these people, how can they connect with you? How they get your product? I mean, obviously it can't be mailed out. It has to be sold locally, I assume, correct?
And we're only in Arizona. It's called lifeischill.com, all lowercase. We do have plans to go in other states, but we're doing it right here, right now. And so, yeah, that's where they'll find me. I mean, I love to teach. I mean, like you, I was a professor. So I'm an educator, and I'm all about empowerment. And I'm going to, unfortunately, a group of people who have never been given the tools and don't know how to maneuver in this new landscape of cannabis. That's scary, but it doesn't have to be.
And what would it take for Life is Chill products to be able to be distributed, say, in Oregon or other states that
it takes millions of dollars because you have to set up everything there. So we're connected to a bioscientific company, and we have 2 PhDs. We only have 8 employees. So we're very unique. I don't know a single cannabis company in all of Arizona except one with a PhD, which I will be networking with. But the scoop is we're serious, and we see our product as medicine. And because of that, we're meeting a need that's right in our face, and no one's dealing with it. Our elders don't know how to age gracefully. They're hurting.
So it sounds like we need advocacy in terms of changing federal laws so that people, there can be interstate commerce within the cannabis industry.
We do need that. And, people are hiding it and moving it, and it's risky, but they're doing it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Is there anything we missed talking about today?
I don't think so. I think we've covered it quite well. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. I've really appreciated it. It's been enlightening to me. And through this whole process of, we've had guests on talking about psychedelics and their benefits, both in the spiritual sense and in the, treatment of PTSD and countless other conditions. I think you're my first guest to really talk about cannabis, and I think it's important that we have that discussion as we talk about aging well. And I've learned a lot, and I have a lot more to learn. So we'll have to have you back on again as things progress a little bit more and continue to kind of educate our listeners and viewers. But until then, just kind of keep doing what you're doing and keep aging well.
Well, thanks. You too, Jeff. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thank you for listening. I hope you benefited from today's podcast. And until next time, keep aging well.